Hello, good evening, and welcome to another Friday and another Ghost Stories by the Fireside. Weather is not being very permitting, is letting us do it by the fire pit, so here we are by the fireplace, pseudo-fireplace, which, speaking of pseudo, I mentioned one time before, love to camp. Have you ever been pseudo-camping? I say pseudo-camping because it's camping, but it's not really camping. It's more or less taking some blankets, maybe a tent, maybe an old board or something, and throwing it out in your yard, the backyard, the field next to your house. But it's more or less, it's camping out per se in your own yard or next to your own yard, where your home's still right there, but you're sleeping out under the stars and you're enjoying the night. Well, tonight's story is just one of many adventures that took place while pseudo-camping. Now, what does it mean by took place? Legend of Lacy Road. This is one that is in the works of being written for this year, at the request of my good buddy Stacy. In one of the events, once we were sleeping out in the field, we happened upon a peculiar creature. Now, let me tell you about it. See, the lights had gone down. Stacy had come over to spend the night, and we spent the evening playing Nintendo and just enjoying the day. Well, that night we decided, rather than sleep inside, we would go camp out in the field. I mean, after all, we had been having some really wild times out in the field, as some of the other stories Diamond would tell you. We had taken an old beat-up piece of paneling from my dad's tool stuff and taken it down into the field and laid it out, because the grass was high enough to be discomforting, but not so high that you couldn't sleep. So we put the paneling down to make like our camp area. Well, as the night drew on and the shadows of evening went from daytime to dusk to finally twilight, it quickly come time for Stacy and I to begin gathering our things to go down into the field. Like I said, this is pseudo-camping. As such, we would start down the field taking notebooks, basically for drawing, and a lantern to have some light besides flashlights. We would take our pillows, because it would get cool and the dew would fall, it would get cold in the morning, so we would take some extra clothes to get warm. And we had everything ready to go. So it would still be a couple hours before it got good and dark and for us to enjoy the evening. So we went back up, played a little more Nintendo. I can't recall exactly what games we played, at least at that point. But soon it was getting close to bedtime for my family, or at least when they would go to bed. And so, as the lights were being turned off in the house, it was time for Stacy and I to make our way across the field one final time to our camping area down near the bottom end of the field. Now, the field in front of my house was a huge open area. One time had an apple tree right in the center, but it was torn up during a storm many years before. Stacy and I traveled across this. It was easily 75 to 100 yards from the house to where we were staying in the field, and still not off of the property at the time. When Stacy and I would get started across the field, and we were talking and carrying on, the shadows of night had enfolded itself around us, and only the glow of our lanterns did anything to fight back the shadows and give us any ample way to see. The moon was in and out from behind clouds that night, so every so often its pale glow would illuminate the field and show us what we were seeing, and then it would go back behind the clouds and darken everything down, leaving us only with our lantern once again. As we crossed the field, the first rise in the field, everything seemed normal. We didn't know whether everything was quiet. We were too wrapped up in our own conversation. We knew where the campsite was supposed to be, and so we made our way on down until we got a peculiar feeling about us. Something, as the moon came out from behind the clouds and bathed the land and the field and the road and the pasture across the road, and the pale golden silvery light of the nearly full moon, something caught our eye, something that was out of place. And we could see it. It looked like someone was standing in the curve near the gate to the old pasture on the other side of the road. Someone, mind you, a person who stood upright, or they stood upright, and in so doing, we noted it, but we acted like we didn't want whoever or whatever it was to be aware that we knew it was there. So Stacy and I skulked silently, slowly, acting as though nothing was out of place, nothing was wrong or amiss, and made our way to the camp place, where we set the rest of our gear down for the night. Then, nonchalantly, we kept our conversation going, and not trying to be too direct by looking of what was there. While we would watch it, we wasn't trying to lock eyes on it, but we could see it. We were looking at it without looking at it. And as hard as that is to describe, you've probably done that before when you've watched something or was watching somebody or something without wanting it to know that you were aware of what it was doing or what they were doing. So in the midst of it, Stacy and I began making our way from the campsite toward the gate toward the gate of the cow pasture, which was on the other side of the road, which is where this thing was standing. Now we could see in the moonlight, as the moonlight would pass through from the clouds, that it stood upright like a man. It was grayish color, and it was plain and simple. It looked like someone was standing there. In other words, as close as we were getting to it, you could tell it was someone. But the features of themselves were just kind of blurred with the twilight and the shadows and such. Well, we were almost at the road. Probably half a dozen or more paces from the actual road and the thing standing there, when it was aware that we saw it, that that we were approaching. The thing, the man, the creature, snarled at us. Snarled. Dropped down onto all fours and proceeded to bound in one single bound over a metal gate to disappear off into the woods, going from upright, standing there like a man, and dropping down onto all fours to bound and bound and stayed on all fours until it disappeared off into the woods, never to be seen again. Stacy and I looked at each other, wondering exactly what was it we saw. Because it wasn't exactly animal, and it wasn't exactly human either. It was a remarkable night. And as we sit there dumbfounded at what we saw, without taking our eyes off of the woods, we made our way back to our camp area, where we stayed on guard and was watching the shadows and watching the trees until the sun peered over the eastern horizon many hours later. And that was the strange occurrence of the thing, of whatever it was that stood in the curve at the edge of the field near the gate of an old cow pasture. You see, that story will be joining the Legend of Lacy Road this year. Which week it'll be posted, I won't be sure which week it'll be posted, but I will definitely keep you updated to let you know. So, I hope you enjoyed what was it that stood by the gate, or the thing by the gate. I'm in the middle of writing it, and I've got a definitive title for it. Now understand, this story was not made up. As I said, it is a Legend of Lacy Road. And if you're familiar with the Legends of Lacy Road, you know that these are the true ghost stories of the place, of the home I grew up in, of the road I grew up on, and the family that pretty much experienced these things. And even ghost stories that are connected to the family. that experienced these things. Now I'll just tell you a regular ghost story. How's that? This comes from the ScaryStories books, and is another story that's been passed down through the ages. Now I'm sure everyone's aware of the big toe. So, without further ado, let's tell the big toe. The boy was working in the field when he came upon a big toe sticking out of the ground. And he looked at it and was like, "My, what a big toe." So he reached down and he went to pick it up, and it was stuck. So he sat there and he twisted and turned and gave it a good yank. Toe just, and a toe with a loud pop come off into his hand. And as he picked it up and examined it, he swore, but wasn't sure, maybe he just imagined it, that he heard something groan and scamper away. Not thinking anything of it, he looked at the toe and was like, "I gotta go show Mom and Dad." So he took the toe back and he showed his parents. And his mom was like, "What a fine fat toe this is. Why don't we'll just make it, put it in with the soup for supper." So they took it and they fixed it up for supper and divided it up and ate and did the dishes and went to bed. Well, the shadows encroached in, the fire died down, and off somewhere in the darkness when all was still, all was silent, there was a voice. "Where is my toe?" The voice said. The boy just stopped and listened. He's like, "No, I'm just imagining things." And as he went to and he rolled over and started just getting snug and feeling himself kind of going to sleep again, he heard something, and it was around the outside of the house. And just as he was about to dismiss that it was an animal sniffing around, he heard this soft, sad voice. "Where is my toe?" He was like, his eyes popped open. He could feel the skin. He could feel the hairs in his neck and his skin just stand up. What was this? Why was it asking for his toe? And then he thought about their dinner, and surely it can't be looking for me. It can't be looking for me. Maybe Mom and Dad will hear it and chase whatever it is off. And then he got silent again. And as he was about to drift off once more, his mind had gotten at ease. He heard something scratching at the door outside, like an animal trying to get in the house. "Where is my toe?" it said. And icicles ran down his spine. "Surely it doesn't know I'm in here," he thought. So he listened, and just as he was about to drift off, he heard something, the door open and shut, and something shambling through the hallway downstairs. And it was closer, "Where is my toe?" He said. And he's like, "It's in the house. It's in the house. Oh God, it's in the house." And he waited and he listened. Maybe if I just listen here and don't say anything, it'll go away. And just as he thought, yeah, it'll go away if I don't make a sound, he heard footsteps on the floor, on the stairs coming up to where his room was. "Where is my toe?" he said. And he sat there and he gritted his teeth, he pulled his covers up tightly, and he was like, no, just stay still. He's like, "Just leave me alone, just leave me alone, just leave me alone." "Where is my toe?" it said, coming from the outside of his door, and a claw. It sounded like something scratching just at his door and tapping. Just tapping. "Where is my toe?" He pulled his covers up over his head and hoping he wouldn't hear him and wouldn't see him. And he heard his door just creak open. And it come in the room with him. He heard the soft padded footsteps and a hobble on one foot. And he heard it. And it was next to his bed. And he could hear the breathing and the soft, painful whimper in his voice. And it said next to him in a voice almost as loud as thunder for the silence, "Where is my toe?" it asked. And the boy said softly, slowly, "I don't have it." "Where is my toe?" "You do have it!" And softly, quietly, silence took over the night once more. I hope you enjoyed these ghost stories tonight. Again, the Big Toe was adapted from the Scary Stories to Tell in Dark and has been adapted many, many times over the years. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next week for another set of ghost stories. Maybe it'll be by the campfire. Maybe it'll be by this. Who knows? We'll see where it goes with that. And as spooky season continues underway and we get ready to go into the full month of Halloween, be ready. Legends of Lacy Road will start being posted up, and I'll start on the blog page, which I'll leave a link in the bios and in the posts themselves when I post up little excerpts. I'm looking at least 3 to 4 stories this year, maybe more, maybe less. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. Might even throw an extra tale for the Fireside in. Or might just revisit Whispery Hollow and the Lovelady Township. And if you're not familiar with Whispery Hollow and the Lovelady Township, last week I told the story of the Long Walk Home. So Whispery Hollow and the Lovelady Township is my gothic Catawba Valley. It's a gothic fantasy, much like H.P. Lovecraft's Town of Arkham, Stephen King's Castle Rock, and many, many other places that many great writers have created to be the home base or the home location for their tales of adventure, mystery, horror, and such. So we'll see what happens with that. I will be glad to do some more ghost stories. And here's an idea. If you have a ghost story you want me to tell, if you have a ghost story you want to hear me tell, if you have a ghost story you want to hear me read and share here, make sure that it's able to be shared, because I'm not trying to infringe on any copyrights. I got to show respect to certain publications and such. Like I was wanting to do some of the stories from Corpse Cold, but they won't allow redo in any format, so I didn't want to cause any issues with that, out of respect for the publishers and the writers themselves. And I would hope that someone would have the same courtesy on my end. So, if you have a story you want me to tell, please drop me a line. Let me know. I would love to do it, and if I could find the story and be able to tell it, I'll be more than happy to share it. Alright, everyone, you have a wonderful evening. Get you a real fire, get some s'mores made, and truthfully, have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you here again next week. See you in the shadows. Peace. Take care.